Okay, so we're going to look at editing a rating in Tideda. So if we go into Tideda and select our input and output files, in this case I've called it demo gaugings. Never work on archive files or raw data files, but always on a temporary file. So this is the site number we're looking on today, and it has stage record in there, and it's a rating here, which you can see, and the gaugings associated. So the first thing we should do, let's have a look at that rating. So we're going to plot the rating here, and we want to show all the gaugings on it with 8% error bars, which is what we use. And we're going to leave everything on auto min, auto max for both vertical axis and horizontal, so that's stage and flow. Let's just check our data then first. We have the right site number, picking up the rating we want, and we want to show the gaugings. So we'll put all data. So when we plot this, we will see the rating with all the gaugings on it. So because this rating goes quite high, we only really want to look at the bottom end, so let's refine that a little. So if we go back to and bring that to the side, if we uncheck auto max, let's select say 3000 and a flow of, let's say, 120,000, that's litres, 120 chemics. That'll give us a bit better range. So we can see here that we've got gaugings that have defined this earlier lower rating, but since then we've had ratings here, 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 and these two here showing a shift to the left. So there's been a rating change at some point. So display these gaugings better, so we can get some statistics of how bad they are and how far off the rating and the timing of them. We can use under extras, rating quality, the bed plot. So a bed plot of all that data, and it will now show us here we can see the stage and flow of each of the gaugings, the date when they occurred, and here the percentage deviation of the curve. So you can see they're running around. Remember, we're aiming for plus or minus 8%, and they're each side of the line, so they're quite plus and minus, not too bad. When we get down to here, we can see they're drifting out to the side, so we've got an 11, 7, 10. So obviously something's happened potentially in here. If I can go to another plot now, I will show you. So here's an example here of the same bed plot, but I've actually drawn on it to show you a little clearer what's going on. So my guess is there's been a high flow gauging here, peaks come through around here, and from then on we've had a change with a swing of a negative bias in the rating here, and you can see that here as this line of gaugings comes off the center line. So we've got a bias and the rating change has happened at this point. And so we need to now establish when this rating occurred by checking the hydrograph for flood peak, so we can put the new rating on this flood peak. So it's going to be between these two dates here. So if we go back now and look at the data, if we select this time the stage record, and let's look at the data between those two times, which was, in this case, here we are, look at 2002, 10, 03, and 2003, 02, 19. And let's graph. Remember, this is stage record we're graphing this time. So we have a gauging here at the end and one just here. If I go back slightly to the left, you'll see there's a gauging here on this peak. So my guess is that the rating change has happened on this peak, which is probably an all-time peak we've had at the site, and we happen to have gauged it on that flood peak. So this sometime in here we're going to pin a rating change. So if we zoom in on this peak, and what I normally do is in zoom mode, just pick some time. So the flood's going to, the rating's going to change at some point over this flood. To keep it simple, we're just going to choose the peak time of this flood. So if I just save and exit there, and if we do a table quick extremes on that record, we will then get the maximum time. So at this point, date and time, we had a maximum peak of 27. So if we write down this date and time here, so we've got 2002 10:03 at 2030, that will be the time of our new rating. Okay, now we can go back to our data, select our ratings, which we only have two. Only have the one, sorry, at the moment. So we select that date and time, and we can show that by listing those coordinates, list ratings to the screen. There we have our existing rating there. Now we want to create a new rating, so we're going to have a new date and time here, and we're going to alter this rating to suit those new gaugings we saw. So the first thing we need to do is list this rating to a list file, or in other words, to a file that we can then edit. And down here, this is the name of the list file. I just happen to call it list.ed, and it's left on my directory. So once we've selected the data we want, we list the rating to the file. So that's already gone there. To see that file, the easiest way is to go into Entry, List Tideda, Fully Specified, and browse for that file again, and make sure your destination file is where you want to be working. In this case, I'll put it back to the same directory I'm using for my input file. And once we're there, we can then edit it at this point. And this brings up the pairs here, which we can then edit. So now we can go here and change the date. So we want to change this to the date we'd written down, which was 2002 10:03 at 2030. So we'll just change it to 2030. And in this case, we're going to use the same start and end time of the rating. So same time again, 2002 10:03 at, let's go back, 2030. So we've now entered the new rating for that time, and we now want to edit these coordinates. But before we do that, let's go back and actually plot the gaugings again on the rating. So we'll just save that at this stage. So we've saved a new rating, which still needs edited. So if we go back to our plotting our rating, again we want to show the gaugings. We're going to use our slightly smaller scale that we defined before. Let's go back and check the data. In this case, we want to show both ratings, all gaugings. Okay, so even though we're showing two ratings here, they look the same because they're on the same line at this point. But we're going to draw a line through these gaugings here, and then alter the coordinates to form this new rating. So one way to do that is you can always do that on a piece of paper. So print this out, which I've done here to show you. This one here. So you can always print it out on A4 or preferably A3, or you can plot the whole thing on an A1 sheet of graph paper so you can get it quite accurate. But by printing out, this is exactly the same thing we had on the screen before, the rating. And you can see these gaugings that we've identified as being off with our beard plot. So it's a good idea to have the beard plot printed out and sitting next to you. So what I would do here, of course, is there's obviously two gaugings here. I would put the rating through the center of those two, center of these two up here, and we're going to merge it back in after this point. So here's our high flow flood gauging. So we're going to merge the ratings back in. They're just separating at the bottom. And the other way of getting other points is you can scale it from known meter marks on the Y scale. So for instance, I've gone for 1,000 here, and scaled it off at 21,000 below, 2,500 here to 80,000 here. Sometimes these need played around with later, but it gives you a place to start from. So if we then enter these points in, so we're going to look at back to the okay, so if we go back to our bed plot, which you should have printed out and sitting with you, you can just scribble on it. We're going to look for points for this new rating. So as we mentioned before on the rating curve, if we go back to there, we've got these 2 points here around about 1600, couple more here on about 2000, and then we're going to enter in these ones, which we're going to pick off the curve and then blend it in at the top. So back to our bed plot. The two, for instance, around 1600, we can see one here at 1652, 1626. So if we just, what I do is I add those two up and average them, add the two flows up and average them. That'll give us a point of 1640 and a flow of 40,900. So there's one of my new points. These two sitting around 2000 millimeter mark. Again, if we average those, we'll get 2068 and a flow of about 59,500. So there's another point, and we'll pick those other 2 points here, the 1,000, 21,000, 2,500, 80,000. And we'll try, and maybe one down at the bottom end here as well. Okay, back into our file we're working on. We have already gone through the process of, let's just look at that again, picking up our rating. In this case we see our new one we put in, new date and time. So this is the one we want to edit. So again we've gone, select that, and again select that. So that date and time is put in there. Okay, that. Now we want to list that to our list file, list.ed down below, and then edit that. So entry list of Tideda fully specified. Make sure that's correct. We have our correct output file, and let's edit that. So in this case we're going to go to our piece of paper we've been writing these details down on, and you see these don't match, so we're going to replace some of these. For instance, we picked off our lower end at 550, and I thought that would have been about 10,000. The next point up was 1,000. So in this case we don't need these ones, so we're going to take these ones out. So just delete those. 1,000, and we were looking at, I've lost it, 21,000 there. So 21,000. The third one was through the middle of one of our pairs, which was at 1600. So let's just get rid of those ones. You don't need all these points, and you can fill more in later. So so this is going through our actual gaugings. So it's 1640. We have a flow of 40,900. So 40,900. Our next type was 21. So let's go through. We'll take out that one at 18. So 20,068 it was. 2068, that's through the middle of those two gaugings. The average flow of those two was, so therefore our line will be going through the centre, 59,500. And then we want to merge it back in. Remember our highest flow at the moment is around 2.7, so we're going to take out these in between ones here at this stage, and let's have a look at that. So always remember to go File, Save, and then close that, and then we can go OK, which will write this new file. We've just edited list.ed back into our main Tideda file, which is done there. So now if we go back, select data, this time we'll pick up both ratings, the first one and the last one. But if we go to our gaugings, select all the gaugings, it will automatically pick up all the ratings. Okay, that, and go back to graph ratings. Again, show the gaugings, error bars. We'll stick to our min-max we're using before. And now we can see the new line drawn here going through the centre of these two at 1600, the centre of the two at 2000, and starting to merge back in above our. I would tend to maybe bring this a bit higher and go through this top gauging here. So again, if we go back and look at our bed plot, there's a gauging. The highest one here I think there's one at 2595, 2742. So that is the high flow gauging there. You see it's the highest of all the ones here, so we really want to put everything through that. So I'm just making a note of that. 2742 at 93, nearly 94. So let's just get rid of that. So that's at 2, yeah, that's that one there, 2793. So now to refine this curve, we just go back to entry, list to Tideda, fully specified. If we bring that out of the way, we go edit. We can make this box a bit smaller too. And then we can actually bring it down so we can still see the curve and where we're working. So there was that gauging, 2750. The actual point to at 2742, 93. So it's a little bit high. We've got 93,900. So I'm just going to change that to 93,900. So that should bring that line higher through here. Let's just try that and save. Okay, graph and re-rate that again. You'll see the line jump up. So it's looking a bit better through catching this gauging now through these ones, blending at the bottom. The line here, as you see, has got a kink. It needs to blend in higher up. So we need to probably take out a point to around 3,500. Back list to Tideda, fully specified. Edit that again. So there's one at 3, let's just move that, which is about there. That's holding it down low. Then it goes to 3.8. So if we take this one here out at 3, file, save that, close that, OK that, and now regraph that. Yeah, that's looking better now. So you can keep playing around with it that way just by going back into that edit box, and then you've got yourself a new rating. Okay, once we're happy with our rating, and just to check how well we've done, or how well those gauging now plot on that new rating, we go back to our rating quality bed plot. Again, if we run that over the data, we'll see firstly the new rating that we've created has been put in at this point here between those two gaugings. Now the bias you saw before, when they're going out to the side, has been brought back, and again once again around that centre line. So if we look at the individual gaugings, we're going fairly low. There's a 3, a 0, plus or minus 5, which is okay each side of the line, but again much better result, and so 100% of gaugings now lie within the rating. So therefore our rating's done.